This is Think Out Loud on OPB. I'm Dave Miller. This past winter tied the record for Oregon's warmest ever and led to record low snowpack. It could be a taste of winters to come, as climate change causes more precipitation to fall as rain, not snow. A new study led by scientists at Oregon State University could help water managers plan for this. It offers a new way to model the speed at which water makes its way from precipitation into rivers and streams. That transit time is getting faster, which could have major impacts on water quality and water availability later in the season. Zach Butler is a postdoctoral researcher at OSU and the lead author of this new study. He joins us now. It's great to have you on Think Out Loud.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So I mentioned transit time or water transit briefly just now. What exactly is it?
Yeah, so water transit times are the time it takes water to move from once it arrives as precipitation to once it exits a watershed as stream flow.
What did you set out to study in this new research?
Yeah, so we wanted to use a newly advanced model to understand how climate change might affect water transit times in the hydrologic cycle. And the way we did that was we used this new model and we measured and modeled a current historical climate. And then we used a new data set that can allow us to understand what climate change might do for temperatures and precipitation. And then we modeled what water transit times will do in the future.
For years, we've heard that less snowpack is a problem because there's less of this aquatic battery storing water that can last as a solid form until spring and summer and slowly trickle out into surface water. That rain goes into a river faster than snow does. And it seems like your study corroborates that. It doesn't overturn what scientists already thought. So what is new about what you learned?
Yeah, exactly. What we're showing is what scientists have said for a relatively long period of time. But what we're doing is we have this newly advanced model that's very computationally expensive. It's very complicated. And our model essentially allows us to track precipitation events through our environment. And this has not really been done on such a large scale. And then especially no one, to our knowledge, has done this in a future climate change scenario. We're using this advanced model that can actually predict the future based off calculating water transit times, as we mentioned.
Is it possible to track actual molecules of water? I mean, if there's some big snowstorm in the mountains, can you know that this particular snowflake eventually melted and on June 5th,
Yes.
some of those molecules are going to end up, I don't know, in the Grand Ronde River?
Yeah, we can. It's all done through isotopes. And so an isotope just means it has an extra neutron in an atom. And so when we do this, I've been talking about models, but what we currently do and what the current capabilities of most scientists and researchers are is to use isotope observations within the water. And that's both within precipitation from once it arrives on a landscape and then measuring the isotopes in the water at a stream or a river. And then understanding what that isotope value is from its arrival as precipitation, and then understanding that isotope value as stream flow, you can use complex mathematical equations to have a pretty good accuracy of of how long that isotope took from precipitation to stream flow. And so that was an important part of our research is, yes, we used this newly advanced model, but we used existing methods to validate our model during our current climate. So we went out into the field, collected isotope observations. Our model is able to simulate some of these processes as well. And so we could show how our model is able to predict our current climate accurately. And so based off the data we give it to simulate the future, we can then make these conclusions.
How much faster will water transit flows get in the coming years? What were your conclusions?
Yeah, so we showed on average across the year that water is going to move through our ecosystems nearly 20% faster or roughly 1 to 2 months. And in the Pacific Northwest, this primarily means faster water in the winter. And again, that's because like this winter is we had a roughly normal precipitation across this winter. But as you mentioned, is we had much warmer temperatures, and then that means a lot less snow. And so once precipitation arrives more as rain, it'll move through our watersheds faster. And so that's what we observed. And this was on an average scope across the whole calendar year. But the other thing we found was that water transit times will also have a noticeable seasonal shift from the winter wet season in the Pacific Northwest to the summer dry season out here.
Meaning what? What's that shift you're talking about?
Yeah. So that shift is, like I just said, is we'll have higher stream flows and younger water in our streams during the winter and spring, like right now. But we're starting to see this shift as you get to summer and then fall, is because we had most of that water coming out during the winter and spring, there's actually less water available during the summer and fall. And that's really where our findings get into the potential detrimental impacts related to what we're showing, is that because we're going to see less water in the summer and fall, that can have damaging impacts to our hydrologic cycle and to different agricultural.
So let's turn to those to the problems that your study is predicting. You are getting to water availability there, which I want to come back to, but we've talked more about that over the years than about water quality, which you also talk about in your study. Why does faster water transit times potentially mean lower water quality?
Yeah. And so that's a key point. And so we're showing faster water transit times on average. And what we're showing is related to what other scientists and researchers have shown, is that when you get water to move through faster, if you were to have a contaminant in an area, that contaminant will also move through faster through your watershed. And so normally in our current climate is contaminants would perhaps move slowly through the environment with our current hydrologic cycle. But if we see this water that's accelerating these processes, that means we could see higher levels of a contaminant if that were to happen. And that can be an issue for a variety of reasons.
Okay. What kind of changes are you expecting in terms of water availability?
Yeah. And so that's the other key thing, is this seasonal shift in the hydrologic cycle that our study is showing. And so water availability is, we're expected to see a decline in that in the summer and fall. In the Pacific Northwest, that's really important because most of our precipitation comes during the winter and spring, and we rely that precipitation to melt slowly as snow through the summer. But like this year, is we don't have that snowpack to melt slowly. And so that means we're going to have less water in the summer and fall. And we expect streams to be lower and reservoirs to be lower because of this, which means we'll have less water to use for our agriculture.
How could your new model change the way water season projections are made or decisions by water managers are made?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it really ties down to what we want our research to mean for people. And we want people who will manage water to be aware of what we're showing. We're using a model that's used by many other scientists. Ours is just a different version of this model with adaptations that I mentioned. And what we're saying is that we want this model to be used and for people to understand what these impacts might mean from climate change. And I said this a couple of times, but this winter is just a really good example of what our study is saying, because it's going to happen. I'm not totally sure if I answered that question fully, but yeah, just let me know.
Well, you did, but specifically, so if there is a water master somewhere, how do you want them to be thinking about a water season differently going forward than they maybe have in the past?
Sure. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is conserving your water more. And so because we're saying water is going to move through faster, is just finding additional ways to conserve your water more so you can make it last longer in the summer and fall when we'll have less water, like we're saying. I think that's the biggest thing that people could take away.
Do you think that the winter we just experienced is going to be seen as the norm, say 20 years from now, a historically bad year for snowpack? Is it that terrible phrase, the new normal going forward?
Yeah, it's hard for me to say it'll be the new normal. I think I like to say it's going to have a higher probability of happening more frequently. Whether that's the normal, I'm not sure. Climate change is having all different effects across the world. It makes extreme conditions more likely. And so, yes, we'll see a higher probability of what this winter was to happen more in the future. And that's what our studies showing is that we'll see a higher probability of that. Yes, we could still see snowy and cooler winters, but we're more likely to see these warmer winters in the future.
In addition to your academic work, you are also a meteorologist for the website Open Snow. What do you do for them?
Yeah, it's a fun job. So I do the weather report essentially for different ski resorts across Oregon. I put out a daily blog. We call it a daily snow, where I look at the weather data and I digest it and I write about what that'll mean for the ski and snow conditions across Oregon. And it's really fun on a normal year to talk about all this snow that's falling, where the best snow will be. We're powder hunters as skiers or at Open Snow, so we want to know where the best snow is. So I kind of digest the data and have fun and write a blog about what that means for who and where is going to see the most snow.
Okay, but what you've just described almost seems like theoretical or hopeful compared to the winter that you just reported on and did forecasts for. What was it like? So it seems like you said you are a powder hunter yourself, a skier yourself, who got into this particular line because I assume because you love snow and love skiing. So what was it like to do those reports this dismal winter?
Yeah, it was hard. It was a little sad just to not have a lot of snow to talk about to kind of cheer people up. And that was across the company of Open Snow. We have forecasters that do these weather reports that I do for Oregon across most states, across the West, as well as the globe. And there was definitely a tone that we all set this year that was just kind of a little sad. But as a meteorologist and as a writer, I tend to find optimism in most things. I think that's just kind of how I also live. And so I think it also makes you appreciate when it does snow. And so there were some few storms this year that did give good ski conditions. So I try to always see it on the positive note about, yeah, it was not a good year, but we still had some good days. I had some good days on the slopes in Oregon. So that's kind of how I see it.
Zach, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks. Great to be here.
Zach Butler is a postdoctoral researcher at Oregon State University. He was lead author of a new study that provides a new way to see how climate change is speeding up the rate at which water makes its way from precipitation into streams and rivers. Tomorrow on the show, an Oregon lawyer recently used AI for his legal filings. He ended up citing numerous completely made-up cases, but the judge's fine was very real, a record $10,000. We'll get the details from the head of the Oregon State Bar. Our production staff includes Malia Fass, Rolly Hernandez, Gemma DiCarlo, senior producer Allison Frost, and managing producer Shiraz Sadiq. Nalene Silva and Layla Isbell engineer the show from the Gert Boyle studio. Our technical director is Stephen Cray, and our executive producer is Sage Van Wing. Thanks so much for tuning in to Think Out Loud on OPB and KLCC. I'm Dave Miller. Have a great day.
Think Out Loud is supported by Steve and Jan Oliva, the Rose E. Tucker Charitable Trust, Michael, Kristen, Andrew Kern, and Anna Sanford, and the Jackson Foundation.